So, well...
You finally tracked me down.
Welcome to this pilot episode of the Straight from the Source podcast. I'm your host and interviewer for today, NantenJex, and in this special pilot episode, we're celebrating the 10th anniversary of Source Gaming by quite literally going back to the source and speaking with its founder, Will Loubier, aka PushDustIn. We'll be discussing the how and why Source Gaming got founded, its core principles, and the importance of translation and actually going back to the source in order to destroy misinformation on the internet. With these introductions out of the way, let's get on with the interview. So, Source Gaming has made it to 10 years, which we're all thrilled about. When you started Source Gaming, did you think it would last this long?
So when I first started Source Gaming, I was really inspired by sites like, the localization, what's it called? Legends of Localization. Yeah, Legends of Localization, and then there's Cantopia. Minus World came out after us, I believe. But there's so many great websites at that time when I was about to start Source Gaming that I just was heavily inspired by. I was reading every day. And I was also going through a rough time in my life. My father had passed away a year or a year and a half before I started Source Gaming, and I was really looking to do something, something productive, and try to make a name for myself. And so I started Source Gaming on the hopes that I would be able to build up my experience, because I was just doing English teaching at that time, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that I felt like there was not a long-term career in that industry. And so Source Gaming was very much a way to kind of escape both mentally and physically out of my current situation.
As it's a milestone year for us, I thought this chat would be a great way of recording the history of Source Gaming. So let's start back at the beginning. What led to you starting Source Gaming?
Yeah, so I briefly touched upon it in my previous answer, but I was really active on Smash forums, Smash boards, and there was a league group that was started by, I believe, Blue Pikmin 1, and in that kind of hidden part of Smash boards, we would just speculate about Smash for 3DS and Wii U every day, and this was I think a couple months before the game was set to release, and so everyone was very excited, and speculation was high. And I remember watching a Game Explain video where they pointed out we don't know what this text means. It's in Japanese, but it could be something. And I was just well, I can read that. I know what it means. And I reached out to Game Explain. I was like, hey, this is what it means. Maybe you can include it in your next video. And I'm sure they were overwhelmed with emails at the time, and so it just got passed through. And I was like, well, I should just start my own area and kind of start to record this stuff, because people find it interesting. People want to know. People aren't very satisfied with just oh, well, we don't know what it means. And I think people do look for answers, and there was a clear need of people to who understood Japanese and who could parse through that information and help relay that information to the everyman.
The very first article on Source Gaming was about the ending of Twilight Princess and Midna's final lines to Link. Why was this the first thing you wrote about?
Yeah, so when I initially started Source Gaming, I wanted, the name implied, I wanted to go back to the source, look at the Japanese original scripts of different games, and see if there's anything missed or lost in translation, or something that fans kind of ran with, or a misconception that I could kind of correct. And I remember seeing, I think on Twitter somewhere, that someone was talking about Minda and how she had a romantic interest in Link. And I thought, well, maybe I should go look at the Japanese and see if that's actually implied or not. And so I think that was just like the first article because it was like one of the easiest ones for me to do. At the time, I think Hyrule Warriors for the Wii U had just come out, and I got like the special edition with like the developer interviews and everything. And so I had planned to do like a whole series of Zelda-related articles because that's what I was really interested in at the time.
I was going to say the second and third article are both excerpts that you translated from that special edition.
Yeah, and I figured, like not many people had access to the special edition. Their online shipping isn't as robust as it is now. So like a lot of that information would just be, lost in Japan. And so I felt like I had a unique, interesting point of reference, interesting approach to these articles. Before I started Source Gaming, I actually almost started a blog about Community, the TV show.
Really?
Yeah.
What? I'm sorry, why?
So I had like a couple of, I guess, special interests. And one of them was Community, the TV show. And I like I said, I really wanted to start writing. And like, it was either like, it was just trying to figure out what kind of theme or what kind of blog I could start, and in the end, like video games was just like such a passion of mine for such a long time that I decided to go with that.
Damn, there's an alternate timeline out there where it's Source Community.
Yeah. Get the Chevy Chase interviews. Nowhere else.
So what happened next? How did it go from just you setting up a website to a team of people?
So yeah, initially it was just me, and I got to a point where I was updating the blog semi-regularly, like I think like at least twice a week. And I was becoming more and more active on the Smashboards forums. And I thought, a lot of people in that forum gave me amazing feedback and were really receptive to the articles. And people started asking me if they could write articles for that website and join me and everything and kind of come on board. And so it kind of grew very quickly. I think like, initially there was like, I think 2 or 3 people that joined, with Spazzy being like one of the first 3. And it just quickly, like within like 6 months, got to like 10 people. Because, anyone who was interested in joining, I didn't really have any strong editorial stance as long as they weren't like spreading misinformation. And because I kind of enjoyed just kind of doing this, like it took up a lot of my free time, but I really enjoyed working on Source Gaming, and so it kind of just kept on expanding and expanding until it grew really big.
If there was one thing you think Source Gaming is known for, what would it be?
I think Source Gaming quickly became known for its high quality like Smash translations, and also like the data mining I did around Smash 3DS and for Wii U. I think like with the combination of that, like Source Gaming became a place where people who wanted to know more, especially like journalists, other journalists, like they became really interested in what we were publishing because for a lot of time, a lot of our articles were newsworthy and interesting and something that can be talked about. And so I think like very quickly it kind of built up this reputation where Source Gaming was able to be like, kind of guide the community in some ways, especially the Smash community, to be like, hey, this is, like don't raise your expectations too high. Like this is probably more in line of what's going to happen. And we ended up being able to call quite a bit of things. So I think like that kind of reputation helped, spread against the misinformation that was really present in that era.
Mm-hmm.
Source Gaming translated a lot of the Sakurai Famitsu articles, but the first of these got translated about 7 months after Source Gaming launched. What went into the decision to begin translating these comments?
I remember there was a post on Smashboards that was, talking about how Wolf was considered for Melee. And I went on to like basically the Japanese websites, and I couldn't find any information that said that. And so it became very clear to me, like at that time, that I needed to help bring information from Japan into the West, because there was such a gap of understanding of how these games were made, based on what was available in Japanese and what was available in English. And that's just because of mistranslations or just the lack of articles in English.
Source gaming is all about returning to the source for information. But what does that actually entail? How does one find the source?
It's really difficult. I think it's getting harder and harder. Like, we're in danger right now of losing like the Internet Archive, which if we lose that, that's going to be a whole bunch of history, web history it's just lost to time. I think like, return to the source, it requires something that is active and something that is ongoing. I think you have to constantly question, like, where does this information come from? Why are people talking about this? Why do people think this? And kind of dig deep and really, I guess, let your inner conspiracy self out a little bit, and kind of like, kind of suss out, where things are coming from and who is saying them, and figure out if you can actually trust it or not.
Something that's always weighed on my mind when searching for original interviews and facts is whether or not anyone has actually translated these interviews before or not. While a fresh translation isn't always a bad thing, it can sometimes feel deflating, finding an interview in a magazine only to discover someone else online has already translated it. How did you approach this issue when searching for new, old material to translate?
Yeah, there's a particular Sakurai quote that really stuck out with me. It's basically, specialists can change the world. And I really think like the more honed in on an area that you are able to get, the more like wider of an understanding of that topic that you can have. And so like with me and Source Gaming, like, we aim to get really wide in knowledge of Smash. And so that way we could look at these articles and be like, oh, well, this was already translated, or this is actually new information that's really interesting, and kind of spend our energies getting that available to everyone. And so I think like being a specialist can really help with that issue.
One thing Source Gaming is pretty good at is having a team of translators all looking at an article together, as opposed to relying on one translator. What was the reason for choosing this method of translation, and were there any difficulties that arose from this approach?
Yeah, I mean, just working with a team of translators led to better quality translations. I'm sure there's mistranslations on Source Gaming. Source Gaming itself is not infallible, but like working with a team of people, like errors are less likely to slip through. Your personal bias of how things should be said or what you believe in are less likely to seep in if you work with a team of people. Sakurai, especially Sakurai, he has a way of not saying much. And so you have to kind of like really be careful with not putting too much meaning when he doesn't mean too much meaning. And so I think like working with people kind of ensured that we were, relatively fair with this translation.
Is there any advice you could offer someone who might be looking for some facts for something that they enjoy, but can't seem to find a clear answer, or any answer at all for that matter, online?
It's kind of difficult, I think, because like so much content right now is being created on like shorts and videos, and it's very hard to find where those people have gotten their information from. And so it's really kind of difficult to fact check people, because the way that media is created these days is different from what it was 10 years, 20 years ago. And so I think like it is becoming increasingly harder. One thing I do in my spare time is I rate the community notes on Twitter because I think it's really important to give context for some things, or to not give context for some things. I think like it's really important for people to learn the difference between like an opinion and what is in a fact, and kind of have that media literacy. I think that's something that a lot of people really need to work on.
One of the big accomplishments from Source Gaming is that we're the only outlet to have interviewed every single official Super Smash Bros. Announcer. How did this come about?
Yeah, after we were able to organize the interview with Dean, who did the announcement for Melee, it became kind of a goal of mine to be like, okay, well, I'm going to track down every single announcer and get interviews with them because they hadn't been interviewed before that. Mm-hmm. And I think if I was still working with Source Gaming, I think one of the things I would try to do is try to get more voice actors to talk about their experience, because even if they don't really have an answer, if they're just like, oh, I showed up to work and did the recording, like there's still some history there that should be documented for the future.
I think it's a good thing for us that Xander Mobis sort of remained on as announcer. If they got a new announcer, we'd have to go find, try and reach out to them and get them involved. And who knows how difficult that is now with currently running stuff.
NDAs and everything.
Yeah.
Xander's amazing. I love Xander. He's really connected with the community.
Speaking of Super Smash Bros., I would say one of the biggest accomplishments for the community we've achieved are the Mega Smash Polls, where we performed community-wide research to discover what the Western fanbase thinks of the series. What led to the creation of this?
The original Japanese survey that I did was literally looking at forums and different blogs and YouTube videos and everything, and kind of count how many times the character was mentioned. And I think I talked about the methodology in that in that article, but I thought it was really important to kind of start gauging what the community felt and to kind of track that over time. Mm-hmm. Because I think with the first Mega Smash Bowl, the one that you're talking about is one where we tracked how users felt about certain characters or certain features or what they wanted, right? I think that was like really important because like it kind of gives a better snapshot in time of how people felt. Because one of the things I encountered with Source Gaming was like trying to look back and be like, okay, how did people really react to Melee? How did people really react to Smash 64? It's increasingly hard, more difficult to find that information. And so I think like by conducting polls and doing that research, even though it's I guess free market research for Nintendo, I think that's like really important just as a community, because then it's like, well, people were actually upset with Dark Pit, and if he got cut, people would be upset again. But like it's important to like kind of have those milestones or at least those eras documented, so that way people can look back and have a more accurate representation of that time.
Yeah, it is quite funny looking back pre-Source Gaming to the Smash Brothers community and looking at posts like of people's opinions around Brawl or Melee and stuff. Like seeing how many people were upset at how many Star Fox characters there were in Brawl and not enough Fire Emblem characters, which is very funny.
I think like one thing that Source Gaming has done, and I don't want to sound like I'm patting myself on the back too much, but I do think like we were able to actually like almost improve Sakurai's image in the West, because like when Sakurai came back for Brawl, like a lot of people in the West didn't like it. Like a lot of people were like well, we want someone else. We want someone more hardcore, someone who's not going to create like a Kirby like game. And I think if you look back at like people's perception of Sakurai to what it is now, I think it's completely different. A lot of people have a lot more respect and an understanding of what work he's doing and kind of the process of how he goes about and creates games.
I didn't know that. I think for me, when Brawl was coming out, I was more like, oh yeah, this trailer looks cool. Who do I see in the game? I didn't even think about Sakurai. I don't even know if I knew he was the guy making it.
At least on Smash boards, the reaction was quite negative for a while.
Oh wow.
While we're talking about Super Smash Bros., is there a character you really hope they add to the next game?
Well, I mean, I've long advocated for 9V from WireWare to join Smash, just because I feel like there's so much Nintendo history that should be represented in another way or in other ways in Smash. I think like you can really get like the Gunpei Yokoi inventions as part of 9Volt's moveset. You can kind of like reference other aspects of Nintendo's rich history through 9Volt and kind of have it in like a tongue-in-cheek character that would be really fit really well, I think, with Smash.
Along with our old graphics lead Nerbion, and then myself, NantenJex, you were a part of the creation of Source Gaming's mascot, Source-kun. Do you remember the process of why we created him, and how that came about? From your perspective.
Initially, like when Source Gaming started, like I had my Smash Sports avatar, which was Warluma, just a Wario mixed with a Luma. And that eventually became its own character, like the PushDustIn character, I guess. With the hat and also the holding the floppy disk, and it became like more and more important as we added more people to the Source Gaming team that we have a mascot for Source Gaming that's not my character, because I felt like people's work was being represented with my character, which wasn't fair to them. And so I wanted something that could represent the whole group and really represent the collective instead of me. And so I remember talking with Nerbion and you, NantenJex, about that and being like, well, what kind of approaches, what kind of character would want to go back to the source? What kind of character would be interested in digging up information, and so we landed on something that was really inspired by Source-kun from the Famicom era. It just made a lot of sense because it had that connection to Japan, it had that connection to like kind of classic retro aesthetic, and kind of going back and revisiting things that were once really popular but kind of faded into obscurity.
Yeah, I think the Famicom disk system was like a big image element of sort of the original Source Gaming sort of visuals were very much based around Smash 4.
Yeah.
And then continued to follow the Smash Brothers trends for a bit. But then we were like, oh yeah, Japan, Famicom disk system. It's the back in the day, it was like, yeah, this would be a really good aesthetic for Source Gaming.
And it's one that would last without a different Smash game, and it would be unique to the website.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we had just followed each Smash game, the designing would be like really inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
Just a quick side story. I remember Nerbion, when he first contacted me, I had started creating headers for articles, and they were just so bad. I'm terrible at graphic design. That Nerbion actually reached out to me and was just like, hey, do you need help? Hey, I see that you fried here, but maybe I could lend a hand. And initially, Nerby and I, we had some crazy ideas for the headers.
Oh no.
we I don't know if you probably remember this, NantenJex, but at one point, we were creating headers for every side of the capsule.
Yes, yeah.
For each article.
Every article had 2 headers.
And so it would close the capsule every 2 articles.
Mm-hmm.
But then articles would get delayed, or we would have to adjust the schedule, and it was just impossible to track, and we're just actually we're focusing on something that's not really important. But
this is about when we were doing an article a day.
More than that at one point.
Insane.
There was one point where we were doing 2 or 3 articles a day, and I was only getting a couple hours of sleep every day. But I'm really proud that Source Gaming, with Nerbion and Voyager and everyone who's helped out with graphics, I'm really proud that the website had a really solid design, because I think that really stood out. A lot of the blogs or even channels, they didn't really have as good as aesthetic as I think. I think we were really ahead in that area.
What would you say your favorite article or video is on Source Gaming?
Yeah, that's kind of a hard question.
I know, there's just too much good to pick from.
I guess the if I had to pick one work that I was particularly proud of, or one that I was really glad, was probably the Sakurai Didn't Say That series, where I would go back and look at common misconceptions or mistranslated Sakurai quotes and kind of like set the record straight. I think that was really important. That kind of touches upon the previous answer where I really think like the image of Sakurai improved after Source Gaming. Mm-hmm. I think that was really important because it really helped people understand more about what was going into Smash.
Machine translations have become more accurate over the years, and with the improvements made towards AI, we are seeing several outlets and companies fall back on this for translation. As a translator, do you think machine translation is good enough for use like this, or is it not quite there yet?
I still wouldn't use it for news. I wouldn't use it for making a contract. I think like that's asking for a world of pain. But like I think like with news outlets they still need to be careful. Even though the quality of machine translation has dramatically improved in the last 10 years. I think there's still reason to be concerned or to be a little bit skeptical of what a machine translation says. Like even just last night, I used machine translation to check a Russian video to see what it would say in English, and there was probably like one Russian word that I just got really stuck on and mistranslated it. Mm-hmm. And for me, as someone who doesn't understand Russian, I can't understand that context. But like I know enough with being around translation and dealing with multiple languages that it probably just got stuck on one word. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have experience with translation, then I think you're less likely to spot those errors. And I think that's something that people should be considerate of.
Mm-hmm. After the release of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, you took a step back from Source Gaming and moved your focus into the actual gaming industry itself. What was the biggest surprise that you felt moving from games journalism to becoming an active part of the game development community?
With the game development community and like games journalism, there's such a divide in information. Part of what I still really want to do now that I've been in the game industry for a couple of years is I really want to try to bridge that gap of what is known within the industry and what is not known outside of the industry. I still feel like there's ways that developers and players can actually connect and actually have a better understanding of each other. So that's something that I think I was really surprised about because, with Source Gaming, like we did a lot of interviews. We have done a lot of translations. We've read a lot. We wrote a development history of different games even. But like it still doesn't get to the day-to-day struggles of what it is to create a game, because creating games is difficult. Like you have to you have limits of technology, of art, of people, of money, and there's just all these different areas where game development can go wrong, and it goes wrong all the time, and it's kind of hard to see that because developers are not very transparent.
Hopefully, Source Gaming will still be around even 10 years from now, but online games media has really been struggling recently. It's upsetting as both a creator and a fan. Is there anything the community can do to keep their favourite site or channel up and running?
I think absolutely, like, the gaming community needs to support more outlets directly. Like, up until now, creators have been able to use ad revenue, sponsorships, or paid merchandising, stuff like that, to kind of keep the lights on and kind of create that content. But as the creator space gets more competitive, and as the regulations for different countries increase, and as the social media landscape changes, I really think it's going to be more and more important for people to support their favorite creators directly, whether it's through like a monthly subscription or even just like buying merch or a magazine from them every once in a while. I think if we don't do that, then there's a real danger that we'll lose a lot of these outlets.
And similarly, what do you think I should be doing to keep people interested in Source Gaming?
When I was running Source Gaming, like one of the hardest things I felt was kind of being pigeonholed into Smash. It got to a point, like especially at the end, especially after the Grinch leak and all that. Like I just got really tired of talking about Smash and having to be stuck in that area, which is why one of the reasons why I left Source Gaming is so I could kind of do my own thing, and I did Memory Card after that, which allowed me to do other games. But anyway, basically, I think like it's really important to try to find your own voice and really figure out where you stand. That can be unique to you and to the channel, and that will actually keep people engaged. There's a lot of creators out there that are just engaging because of their personality and because of the games that they're playing, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But like, I think like if you want to have like a team, if you want to do something with other people, then you kind of need to have like a reason for everyone to come together, and a reasoning that keeps people together, and kind of a coherent vision as well.
All right, thank you very much for the interview, Push. Do you have any final comments you want to share with our listeners?
Well, I'm really happy that I was able to work with Source Gaming and everyone who has contributed over the last 10 years to the outlet. Like, I'm really thankful for everyone's effort. I never want to pretend like it was just me, because there's so many people that were involved in it every day, and for such long periods of time, that Source Gaming really wouldn't be what it is without its staff and without the contributors and everyone who contributed. And so I think like, I'm really thankful that Source Gaming can even keep going without me being involved. And I'm really proud that I was able to kind of create something and give it a strong enough foundation that I was able to live on. I think that's really amazing. And I'm really thankful for the community for sticking around and supporting the Source Gaming for so long.
All right, thank you everyone for watching. On screen right now are our patrons from the $5 plus tier. This is the pilot episode for Straight from the Source, which means there is more coming. I have a lot of interviews with a lot of people in the industry, and they're all going to be presented in a style kind of like this. So it would be great to get your feedback about your thoughts on this video and how I've presented it and the style and all of that. We'll be making tweaks here and there as the episodes go ahead, but we welcome any feedback. We want this series to be a success so that it can become a source for people in the future who want to look back at a specific game, gaming profession, or just wanting to know the history of something like Source Gaming. That's why you should subscribe if you haven't, because we're about to really become the source that you always need to return to.